Welcome back to the Inside Pitch. This is episode 4. I am Zach, also known as the Show Noob. Today, we're going to go over the AL West, look at the PECOTA standings, go over each team, and say why or why not they could go over or under their specific win total. The last couple episodes have been the AL Central and the AL East, and we're just going to hop right into it. The AL East, number 5 is listed as the Sacramento Athletics. That's going to take some getting used to, calling them the Sacramento Athletics. Right now, they have them at 72.1 wins, and I definitely know what I already think, and it's going to be way different. What did they do last year? They went 69-93 last year. But they were the Oakland Athletics, and I can't believe they're going to be playing in Sacramento in a minor league park. It's going to be kind of nuts. But at the end of last year, I think they finished almost 500 or a couple games under 500 after the All-Star break. And yeah, they made some moves this offseason. But first, let's see who they lost. I don't think they lost that much. And if they did lose anything, what they brought in is far greater than what they lost, in my opinion. Excuse the ads. I still have to work on getting an ad blocker. So sorry about that if you're watching on YouTube. But the Athletics lost Ross Stripling, Abraham Toro, TJ McFarland, Scott Alexander, Austin Adams, Alex Wood, Sean Newcomb, and Trevor Gott. A lot of pitchers, a lot of bullpen arms, a lot of just not amazing pitchers. All these guys have signed a minor league deal, except for Scott Alexander. And I totally was wrong about TJ McFarland. He actually re-signed with the Athletics. But what did they do? What did they do this offseason? They brought in Gio Urshela in December. He played pretty well for the Braves when they needed him. They needed him bad. Not a terrible season from him. And who else did they bring in? They brought in Luis Urias as a free agent. They purchased Johnny Pareda. They brought in Drew Avans as a non-roster invitee. But the big things they did was they brought in Luis Severino for the starting rotation. They also traded Jeffrey Springs. And I believe they also traded away Lucas Erceg, but that was in the middle of the season last year. That's a pretty big bullpen arm. And Luis Severino, I mean, he had a very, very good year, good bounce back year with the Mets last year. And Jeffrey Springs, he's been very, very good before he went down with Tommy John. But Luis Severino, he's also, having a decent spring, 5 walks, 13 Ks, and 14 and a third innings pitch. I don't really care about the ERA. It's spring. I think it's more of an indicator of whether a hitter is doing well in spring training rather than a pitcher, because they could be working with different pitches, just trying to get their arm ready. But Luis Severino had a really good year last year, 182 innings pitched prior to the 89 in 2023, barely over 100 in 2022, FIP of 4.21. But that's what the Athletics need. They desperately needed starting pitching. And if Jeffrey Springs can do what he did before he went down with Tommy John. I know he came back last year just for a little bit, and he did pretty well, if I remember correctly. 7 starts, a 3.27 ERA, a 3.98 FIP, 37 strikeouts, 33 innings. That's a pretty decent, stretch of starts. But the dudes that I really, really want to talk about are Lawrence Butler just signed an extension. Brent Rooker just signed an extension. Let's just go through their whole lineup right now. That's the first 2. Butler, Brent Rooker, J.J. Bleday, Shea Langeliers, Tyler Soderstrom, Zach Geloff, Seth Brown, Gio Urshela, and Jacob Wilson. I really like this lineup. I really like what they did. I love that they extended Lawrence Butler and Brent Rooker. Those are 2 dudes that absolutely deserve to be extended. Lawrence Butler went off in the second half last year, and it looks like he could be a legitimate top 10 MVP guy, an all-star. He's only 24, by the way. He'll be 25 later this year. Brent Rooker, I mean, he had a ridiculous year. He got extended as well, and those 2 contracts that Brent Rooker and Lawrence Butler signed are pretty team friendly. if I may say so. I believe Brent Rookers was 5 years, 60 mil. Well, what did he do last year? He just popped 39 homers, 293 average with a 927 OPS, a 165 OPS plus, 5.6 WAR as a DH, top 10 MVP, Silver Slugger. I mean, one of the best hitters in baseball at this point, and he's 30 years old, so he should be good for quite some time. Let me just double check the salaries. What is he making? 8 mil. He's making 4 mil this year. That's crazy that he's only going to be making 4 mil. Then 8, 14, 15, 19, and then 22 million vesting option for his age 35 season. Really like what he does. He's just a masher. Lawrence Butler, I want to talk a little bit more about him. I want to see exactly what he did after the break, because I know he started off in the majors and he got sent down to AAA a couple months in or 6 weeks in. Look, I mean, look at his Baseball Savant page. There's a lot of red there. Now, like I've said before, there's not, I mean, may not be the best indicator of whether a player is good or not, but I think seeing that a lot of this red absolutely means they're onto something, you know? What did he do pre-All-Star break? He had 211, 686 OPS with 9 bombs. Post All-Star break, though, hit 300 with 13 bombs, 12 stolen bases, a 345 on base, 553 slug for an 898 OPS. That is a hell of a good half. And in total, he had 262, 317 on base, 807 OPS with the 490 slug, hitting 22 bombs, 18 stolen bases. So I really think that's a strong top 2 and just kind of top half of your lineup, if you're being honest. Shea Langeliers got him from the Braves in the Matt Olson trade, I believe. Yes, it was the Matt Olson trade. He had 29 bombs last year, OPS plus of 111, 2.9 WAR as a catcher. That's very, very promising. JJ Bleday had a really strong year, 3.2 WAR, 120 WRC plus. Tyler Soderstrom, in his limited amount of time, did very, very well. I want to say he kind of paced for 30 homers over a full season, but he hits the ball insanely hard. He's still very, very young, 23 years old. He didn't have enough plate appearances to qualify for the Baseball Savant legit, percentiles. But what is here is very, very red, hitting 233, 9 homers and 189 at bats, 744 OPS, on base percentage almost 100 points higher than his average. It's right around 80. That's a very, very, very good, promising guy. And Zach Gelof, yes, he had a very, very poor year compared to what the expectations were, but he's only 25 years old. He can bounce back. And if he bounces back, Tyler Soderstrom takes a step above and plays a full season. Shea Langeliers does what he does. JJ Bleday has a season like he did last year. That's a really, really strong top 6 of the order. That makes it really, really deep. And Jacob Wilson, their top prospect, basically, you get a full season out of him. Jack Wilson's son, suddenly that's a very, very deep lineup. And when adding Luis Severino, adding Jeffrey Springs, Osvaldo Bido is also a guy who did pretty well, although very, very short sample size. JP Sears, can he improve? And Joey Estes, can he improve on what he did last year? That's a bit of a weak back end of the bullpen. But I really, really like this team. And they also brought in Justin Sterner, Jose Leclerc, and Noah Murdoch in the bullpen. And what can you really say about Mason Miller, except he's one of the most electric arms in baseball? I remember them toying around, or I heard they were toying around with him coming back as a starter this year. I don't think that's happening. But, I mean, regardless, what you're going to get with Mason Miller out of the bullpen is just ridiculous. He had a 2.3 WAR out of the pen last year, 2.49 ERA, 28 saves, basically a 14 and a half K per 9. I mean, he's definitely one of the best closers, one of the best pitchers in general in baseball. Dude has an electric fastball. I mean, he was in the 100 percentile in fastball velo, xERA, x batting average, average exit velocity, chase, whiff, Ks, a barrel, hard hit, extension. Dude's just a freak, man. A freak in the best way. Jose Leclerc, also kind of a semi-reliable. I mean, reliable in the sense that he's going to give you some innings. He's been healthy the past several years, if I remember correctly. Tyler Ferguson, TJ McFarland. TJ McFarland had a pretty decent year last year, 270 ERA over 56 and 2/3. And that's pretty much it. Who do we have? We got Luis Medina and Ken Waldichuk. They had Tommy John surgery last year. Ken Waldichuk, can't even talk. Sorry about that. Ken Waldichuk, very, very promising lefty, but he had Tommy John in May of last year. So maybe you see him come back at the end of this year. Same with Brady Basso. He strained his shoulder in February, so you're probably not going to see him for quite some time. But with that being said, 72.1 wins for Sacramento. I'm hammering the over. I definitely think they can win more than that. I think they're a 78 to 80 win team. The thing that really worries me the most is probably that rotation. I know they added Severino. I know they added Springs, but the back end is very, very questionable with Osvaldo Bido, Joey Estes, JP Sears. Now, I think Osvaldo Bido could be decent. You just need more innings out of him. I don't really know what you can expect over a full season from him. JP Sears had a decent year, and Joey Estes, a 5-year, he's 23. He's 23. So him as a number 5, he could take a step forward. I really hope he does, but that is kind of what I'm worried about. The back end of, I'm honestly not really, I was going to say I was worried about the back end of the lineup, but I just think this lineup could be deep if Zach Geloff pops off, Jacob Wilson takes a step forward. Same thing with Soderstrom. I'm not too worried about Butler, Rooker, Blade, or Langeliers. I think that's a really, really strong top 4. And I'm honestly really excited to watch Rooker and Butler and this lineup, see what they can do. I think Rooker has a 40 homer season in him. I mean, he basically hit that last year. But I think it's the over 78 to 80 wins at least, I think is possible. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if you see him win like 83, 84, have a winning record. That's how much I kind of believe in the Athletics. And you kind of saw it at the end of last year. In the second half, at least, they played around 500. So I think they could take another step forward in 2025. But the next team is the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim with 74.4 wins. And, I was listening to something about the Angels just this morning, actually, where Ron Washington has banned the players from using their cell phones in their lockers, making them come together as a team, talking with their teammates and stuff like that. And I think that's very, very valuable. I don't know how, if at all, it's going to influence my thoughts on what their win total will be or what their lineup or rotation is going to be. But anyway, they lost a couple names. Nothing too crazy. They lost Patrick Sandoval to the Boston Red Sox. They lost Kevin Pillar, who retired for a second. Then I think he came back for a second. He signed with Texas on a minor league deal. Hunter Strickland, same thing. Texas minor league deal. They lost Griffin Canning. Adam Simber, Miguel Sano, Jose Cicero have not signed anywhere yet. You lost Matt Moore and Brandon Drury, who both signed minor league contracts. Now, that is really not a lot of people to lose. Who do they gain? They traded for Jorge Soler to the Braves. They signed Yoan Moncada from the White Sox in February. They signed Kevin Newman to play shortstop because Zach Neto is still recovering from shoulder surgery he had later last year. I think he's gonna be a very, very good player for them. They did sign Travis d'Arnaud, JD Davis, Tim Anderson taking a flyer on him. What does he have left in the tank? Same with JD Davis. Both of those two are non-roster invitees. Travis d'Arnaud coming in to be the backup catcher. I think that is extremely valuable. You saw how he was probably the best backup catcher for the Braves for quite some time. And I mean, is it okay to call him a backup? He started like a lot of games for them. You brought in Yusei Kikuchi and Kyle Hendricks. Kyle Hendricks, I thought he was done. and I still think he could be toast. Having him in the rotation is a little bit scary, but Yusei Kikuchi is a very, very good pickup. You signed Kenley Jansen from the Red Sox. I'm going to stop saying signed him from, because, he was a free agent. You didn't sign him from anywhere. So my fault. I'm going to try to clean that up. You took Garrett McDaniels as a Rule 5 pick in the bullpen as well. So what do we think about the Los Angeles Angels? Now, there's some guys I like in this lineup. I really like Zach Neto. I think he had a great year, but as we said, he is going to be starting the year on the IL. And what did they do last year? I want to say they won 60. Oh, wow. I was way wrong. They went 63-99. That makes sense, because I think they're the only franchise in MLB history that hasn't lost 100 games, and they barely kept that streak alive, which is hilarious in my opinion. But I think Zach Neto being on the IL is very, very unfortunate. A 5 B-WAR season last year, 23 homers, 30 stolen bases, OPS plus of 113. He's pretty good with the glove. He's a good all-around player. So you really need him to come back and be a part of this lineup. I've always kind of liked Taylor Ward. He's always kind of had a very, very good baseball savant page. What can I say? I like Red. I really, really like Red. How do you spell Taylor? Is it E-E-R or O-R? I'm crazy. For those of you who are listening on Spotify, by the way, we are on Spotify, so that if that is your preferred method, go ahead and follow us there. It's the Inside Pitch. Also, if you're enjoying the content, just make sure to hit like if you like the video, subscribe if you want to see more episodes, and comment what I can do better. I would love to hear it. I'm kind of new at this. I know the rants sometimes might seem all over the place, like I'm going on a tangent right now, but let me know how I can make things better for you. Anyway, I've always really, really liked Taylor Ward's batted ball profile. His expected slug, his barrel percent, his WOBA is always pretty high up there, except for 2023. I was a big fan of him in 2022. Picked him up in my fantasy team for 2023, and wouldn't you know it, a lot more blue, a lot less red. But that's neither here nor there. Hopefully he can kind of expand on what he did last year. His page looked really, really good. Had a WRC plus of 111. Solid year. I hope he keeps that up. 25 homers. OPS of 750. That could be pretty solid. Nolan Schanuel had a little bit of a step back, or maybe didn't play up to expectations. He did add a little bit of pop. 1.3 WAR. I mean, he was only 22 last year. 250 average. He gets on base, though. 343 on base percentage. Michael Nelson Trout. I can't believe that he's going to be 34 years old this year, but he did not get a full season. I mean, when's the last time he got a full season? He played about 30 games, if my memory is correct. 29. I was very, very close. He had 10 homers, OPS plus of 139, and what is probably the worst OPS of his entire career, which is nuts, because a 139 OPS plus is extremely good OPS plus. Let's see. Is that his lowest career OPS? No, it was 2023, but he got significantly more games. His lowest OPS plus was 132 and 858 in 2023. But man, I would love to see if he's healthy this year. I think Jorge Soler is a great ad. You know how much power he has. Yoan Moncada, I mean, he was once one of the top prospects in baseball, had a great 2019 actually with the White Sox, but it just didn't pan out for him. He's a switch hitter. He's going to be 30 at some point this year. I would really, really love to see a bounce back from Yoan Moncada. I mean, he came over from he was at the White Sox. Probably the worst situation to be in all of baseball history, to be honest. I heard things about the clubhouse. I mean, how can you really even get motivated to try to win there when there's no end in sight to the misery? So I would really, really like to see him bounce back. I think Logan O'Hoppe has the potential to be one of the best hitting catchers in baseball at any given time. I think he might have a 40 homer season in him. I just think he needs to stay healthy. I know he's been a little bit bit by the injury bug the last several years. 2024, he didn't get bit by the injury bug, but in 2023, he had 14 homers and 182 ABs. I just think that he is more in the tank. Maybe I was a bit extreme with the 40 homer season. He had 20 last year, but I think there's more there. You got Luis Rengifo, who I think is a pretty underrated player, 117 WRC plus last year. Joe Adell has like several week stretches where it looks like he's figured it out, but then he just crashes hard. I would love to see him just kind of figure it out, and that would be absolutely huge for him. Kevin Newman at shortstop right now to just take over for Zach Neto while he recovers. Their rotation, Yusei Kikuchi, Jose Soriano, Tyler Anderson, Kyle Hendricks, and Reed Detmers. Overall, what do I think about the lineup? I think it has potential if everyone stays healthy and can you bounce back. You have bounce backs from Yoan Moncada, and if Mike Trout stays healthy, I mean, that is huge. If Nolan Shenwell takes a step forward, if Zach Neto comes back and is a producer at the same level he was last year, I think this lineup has potential. I really do. And I do like the bench. I mean, you got Mickey Moniak too, who had a decent year in 2023, where he hit like 20 home runs off as a platoon player, a former number 1 draft pick by the Phillies in 2016 or something like that. Yes, 2016. I was correct. I cannot believe I was right about that, for being honest. Yeah, he had an excellent season in 2023. 114 OPS plus, really, really bad year last year, 81 OPS plus. But I think that's a pretty decent bench, or it could be a decent bench. JD Davis could be solid. And by decent bench, I mean just Travis d'Arnaud, Mickey Moniak, potentially JD Davis. Tim Anderson, I don't know. He was literally like the worst player in baseball last year. So forgive me for saying pretty decent bench. Thanks for letting me come to my senses a little bit after reading Tim Anderson's name and just being a Braves homer and really liking Travis d'Arnaud. But it all depends on health. Mike Trout is the obvious biggest carrier of this lineup, and he needs to stay healthy. And I really, really hope him moving to right field help facilitates that, and we can get at least 100 games out of him this year. You would hope. I just hate that I say that high-end games started for him is 100 when there's 162 games. It just sucks. I hate it so much. The Angels rotation, Kikuchi, I can't even talk. Kikuchi, Soriano, Tyler Anderson, Kyle Hendricks, and Reed Detmers. I don't really have confidence in this rotation. I really like Yusei Kikuchi. I think that's a good signing. Jose Soriano had a pretty decent year last year. 3.42 ERA, 113 innings pitched. Tyler Anderson had kind of a decent year last year too. 3.81 ERA, 179 innings pitched, but he's 35 years old. I don't understand the logic for bringing Kyle Hendricks in. He was god awful last year, a K per 9 of 6 and an ERA of 5.92 over 130 and 2/3 innings. He's 35. He throws about 88 miles an hour. I just don't know. Reed Detmers, I've been really high on Reed Detmers before last year, where he had a 6.7 ERA in 87 innings pitched. I do like the back end of this bullpen with Ben Joyce. I mean, you just love Ben Joyce, how hard he throws. He's like I don't know. He throws so hard that it's hard not to really appreciate it. What's weird is that his K per 9 is only 8.57 with throwing 105 miles an hour, but he had a 2.08 ERA. Maybe he needs to work on his secondaries a little bit more. I think that's a little bit obvious. He doesn't walk that much for a guy who throws that hard. 3.63 walks per 9. Kenley Jansen had a pretty decent year as well. Those two on the back end. Brock Burke, I know he's had success in the last several years, but he did not have a very good year last year. I think he had a really, really good 2024. no, he was or 2023. He was amazing in 2022, semi good in 2023. He was a little bit better when he came over from Texas last year, having a 3.54 ERA for the Angels, but a 9 ERA for the Rangers when he was there. But overall, I think the bullpen is pretty weak. Yeah, picked up a Rule 5 draft in the bullpen. That's never really good if you're taking a Rule 5 draft for the bullpen. Anthony Rendon is soaking up so much money, having hip surgery in February. Nice of him to wait the whole offseason to discover his hip was messed up. I don't think we ever see him in an Angels uniform again. I think he's done, but it still sucks that they have so much money tied up in him. If they didn't have him, they didn't have to worry about him. They could have spent more money on the rotation. But anyway, 74.4 wins. Man, I don't know. I think that's a really, really strong, that's a really good line. The optimist in me wants to say over. And you know what? I'm going to say over, but it's not going to be a whole lot. They're still going to finish last in the division. I think there's no question that Sacramento is a better team just overall, top to bottom with their lineup. I think they have less question marks than the Angels. I think there's just too many question marks. And having Mike Trout be hurt every single year, I just think it makes it so tough for me to say the over. I know Jorge Soler's a good get. Zach Neto's had a great year last year, but Taylor Ward has been good, but not amazing. Nolan Schanuel, hopefully he can take a step forward, but you don't know. Yoan Moncada, you don't really know what he is at this point. And Joe Adell, can he figure it out? Luis Rengifo is a nice player. But overall, with the question marks in that lineup and how thin the starting rotation is outside of Yusei Kikuchi, you know what? I'm starting to change my mind. I'm really starting to change my mind. You know what? I'm actually going the under. Sorry, I changed my mind. I don't know what I was thinking. Naturally, I want to be an optimist. And then my emotional brain wants to be an optimist. My logical brain is screaming at my emotional brain right now. And my emotional brain wants Mike Trout to stay healthy and play at least 120 games. But I think that's what it would take for the Angels to win above 74.4 games. And I don't know if that's going to happen because we haven't seen it for what feels like a decade at this point. So I'm changing it to the under. It's the under. Under 74.4 wins for the Angels, which is unfortunate because I want to see Mike Trout make the playoffs at some point. But I think he's going to have to request a trade at this point to make that happen if he wants to do it in time, which I don't think he will at this point. Anyway, next up, the Seattle Mariners at 86.3 wins. That's kind of that's an interesting line for them, I feel like. The Mariners, who this offseason review will be very, very quick, at least. They lost Josh Rojas to the White Sox, Justin Turner to the Cubs, Jimmy Garcia to the Toronto Blue Jays. They did re-sign Jorge Polanco. They lost Luis Urias and JT Chargois. Give me a thumbs up if I pronounce that name correctly, if you're listening at this point or watching at this point. Who'd you bring in? You brought in Rowdy Tellez as a non-roster invitee, brought in Donovan Solano, and brought in Casey Legumina in the bullpen. And that's it. That is all you brought in for the offseason. And I am very, very upset about this. Like, the Mariners are not even my team, but I am very, very upset because, all right, we're going to skip to the rotation. We'll go through the lineup a little bit later. Excuse me. They have one of the best rotations in baseball. If not the best, they're at least top three. Logan Gilbert, Luis Castillo, Bryce Miller, Brian Wu. George Kirby is dealing with a little bit of injury, which is exactly why I'm going to be upset here in a little bit. But those five gave you some of the best, maybe one of the best overall starting rotation performances that we've seen in quite some time. And what the Mariners did to supplement and help that rotation from an offensive point of view, from an offensive perspective, is ridiculous. And I cannot believe that they didn't try to capitalize off what they have right now, because seasons like that from a starting rotation do not happen very often. They don't. They just don't. They were what were they? They were fourth in WAR as a starting rotation, fourth in XFIP, third and FIP. Sorry, they were the best ERA by 0.17, which is exceptional, very exceptional. And what did they do on a hitting level? Let's find out, because I did a video on them about halfway through last season on the main channel, and I was saying that they needed to buy like right now because of their rotation. And how about that? Maybe I had something going. Maybe I was cooking just a little bit for once. What was their WAR as a team for hitters? Their WAR, okay, this is surprising to me. Their WAR was 21.4. However, their batting average, 29th. On base percentage, where were they? They were 15th. What was their slug, though? This is probably the most ridiculous thing out there. 25th in slug. What was their WOBA? 21st WRC plus. What were they? They were 12th, which is extremely surprising, but still, imagine if they had guys with a little bit better batting average, a little bit better slug to pair with their on-base percentage. Imagine if they went out and actually spent money on the lineup. Because right now, you got Julio Rodriguez and Cal Raleigh as the top, as Julio Rodriguez could be the best center fielder in baseball. Cal Raleigh has a potential to be the best catcher in baseball, certainly the best hitting catcher. And despite those two being exceptional at their positions, you still struggle on offense. You brought in Randy Arozarena at the middle of last year, which was great. Luke Raley had a pretty decent year, pretty solid power speed threat. You have Mitch Haniger still in the lineup, who had a negative WAR last year. JP Crawford had a massively disappointing season last year after having one of the best seasons of his career, after having one of the best shortstop seasons in 2023. Jorge Polanco was putrid last year. Ryan Bliss at second base projected. You know, he had 101 WRC plus and 71 plate appearances. Mitch Garver was also a very big disappointment last year. Rowdy Tellez, you brought him in as one of the only supplemental pieces to the lineup in free agency. Negative WAR last year. Donovan Solano, 118 OPS or a 118 WRC plus. That's not bad. But he's 37 years old. Not saying he can't do something because he's old. I'm not trying to be ageist out here. Look at Carlos Santana. But at the same time, he's not starting, and it's only 0.8 WAR. And Victor Robles was a very nice story last year. 141 WRC plus. They extended him a little. I think they gave him a couple year contract. It's a very nice story. 814 OPS. Can you rely on him doing that again? I just don't know. Randy Arozarena it seems like every year he's been regressing a little bit every year. But and what makes me so mad about the Mariners not capitalizing off of last year is because all their starting pitchers were healthy last year. And that doesn't happen very often. Look at the Braves. They lost Spencer Strider. Look at the Yankees this year. They lost Garrett Cole, Luis Gil. You can't bank on your starting rotation always being there, especially when they all did so well last year. I mean, Brian Wu, 120 innings pitched, Bryce Miller, 180, Luis Castillo, 175, Logan Gilbert was a workhorse, 208 innings pitched, and George Kirby also, I think, if not over 200, I don't have it in front of me. Off the top of my head, it's at least 190, I think. How do you not try to capitalize off of that type of starting rotation and just getting a little bit more offense? You know, get a guy for the DH position, get another second baseman, I mean, even just re-sign like Justin Turner or Josh Rojas. Josh Rojas, probably a bad example. He'd probably be a bench option because he's going to be starting for the White Sox, which basically a AAA team, if that. But now you got George Kirby dealing with shoulder inflammation. So is he going to be out for an extended amount of time? Maybe, because shoulders are pretty iffy. So now you might have a guy down who's integral to your success as a starting rotation, and you didn't improve on offense. So if you got a guy who's filling in that role as Emerson Hancock, who had a 4.75 ERA, how are you going to win? Like, it's just, man, you got me going, Seattle. You got me going. But can they do well next year? That's not to say they can't do well next year. 86.3 wins, I think, is a pretty good line. Maybe let's deal with the good things. You have Julio Rodriguez and Cal Raleigh. Cal Raleigh is one of the best catchers in baseball, certainly the biggest power threat, in my opinion, as a pure homer perspective. Julio Rodriguez, great. And he's only 24, which is kind of nuts. 3.9 WAR. He's great on both sides of the ball. But can he do it year round offensively? Victor Robles, is he what he was last year? Because if he was, then you have a great player. Randy Arozarena, we've seen flashes of brilliance, but it seems like every single year he gets a little bit worse with the bat. 219 overall last year, batting average, 720 OPS. Basically just an average hitter. So what does he bring to the he is a quick guy. He's very fast. He plays some really, really good defense, and he does some good base running. But you need him to hit a little bit. Luke Raley, I think he's a very, very underrated player. I really do. And Mitch Haniger, what is he now? Is he gonna be a big contributor to the offense? I know he's beloved by Seattle fans, and for good reason. JP Crawford, can he have just even something in between what his last year and 2023 was? Because I think if you find a middle ground between those 2 years, it's a very good season, very good potential, especially if he's down in the 7 hole. Corey Polanco, kind of the same thing. I don't think he's as bad as he was last year, but I also don't think he's as good as he might have been in the past. And Ryan Bliss, I don't really know what we're going to get out of Ryan Bliss. I believe he is a pretty decent prospect. He was drafted in the second round in 2021 by Arizona. And what do I think? What's the over under? I don't have confidence in the hitting. I do think Julio Rodriguez could have a great year because he always has the potential to have a great year, like an MVP type of year. But George Kirby's shoulder troubles scare me a little bit. And Luis Castillo's getting a little bit older. Logan Gilbert threw 208 innings last year. I really love Logan Gilbert and Luis Castillo, by the way. I love Brian Wu and Bryce Miller. I think those are two fantastic starters as the whole starting pitching. Maybe Emerson Hancock can turn into a dude because he was one of their top prospects. But I'm going to go with the under because I am just, maybe even out of spite, I'm going the under because they didn't do anything this offseason. And I think, what's it going to take for them to do something in the offseason? Is it going to take, and this sounds horrible, but is it going to take George Kirby missing 3 months and realizing you need more help on the offense for you to spend money and hop over that 54% BS theory? Is that what it's going to take? Because if that's what it's going to take, maybe that's what needs to happen. George Kirby might need to stay on the IL for like 3 months, get healthy. And the reason I say that sounds awful is because it sounds like I hope George Kirby is hurt. I definitely don't hope he's hurt. I want to see him pitch. I want to see him make 33 starts every single year. I want everyone to stay healthy. But something needs to happen for Seattle to realize that they need to spend some money and give this rotation some help on the offensive side. A little bit of pressure taken off them. So I'm going the under. I just don't think they can do. They're going over 86 wins. I think 82, 83 is more than feasible. Now, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I think Seattle has the potential to win 90 games, but I just don't think they're gonna. That's basically what it is. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments about my rant and my opinion about Seattle. Next up is the Houston Astros, projected 87.2 wins. And I think the Astros are in a very, very interesting spot. I mean, they just traded away Kyle Tucker. They lost Alex Bregman. They lost Yusei Kikuchi, Jason Hayward, Justin Verlander, Caleb Ferguson, Hector Neris, Kendall Graveman, Jose Urquidy. They did bring back Ben Gamel. Don't have Jose Abreu anymore, which is probably addition by subtraction. Aledmus Diaz is still out there. That's a lot of big names. You trade away Kyle Tucker, one of the best players in baseball right now. Bregman, one of the faces of their franchise the last several years. Yusei Kikuchi was amazing after coming over from Toronto. Justin Verlander, yeah, he had a disappointing year. And Jason Hayward, yeah, he's not an everyday guy. Who'd you bring in, though? You brought in Christian Walker to play first base. That's an immediate upgrade over Jose Abreu. You brought in Isaac Paredes, who has a lot of team control. He's definitely a cheaper option than Alex Bregman. He was not very good last year for the Cubs, but it's very, very obvious because his swing style plays very, very specific to poolside stadiums. So the Trop was amazing for Isaac Paredes, and you couldn't pick a better spot for him to land than the Houston Astros because he's going to fall in love with that short porch out there and left. They also brought in Hayden Wesneski in that trade for the bullpen, or even being the number 5 starter, which he's listed right here on Roster Resource in Fangraphs. And you brought in Luis Guillorme for the bench. You got Cam Smith in that trade from the Cubs. You brought in Cam Smith, who I think is the most important part in that deal. And I'll get into a little bit later why I think this trade works for Houston. But you also brought in Steven Okert, Logan Van Way, Jalen Beeks for the bullpen. And you purchased Taylor Trammell from the Yankees. And man, they just have a lot of guys on the injured list that they're going to be missing. They're going to be missing Luis Garcia. Luis Garcia might be coming back soon, actually, though, because he had Tommy John back in 2023. Christian Javier had Tommy John in the middle of June last year. Lance McCullers might be coming back soon. I know he just threw off a mound, I think, in a actual game in spring training. I thought he was a ghost. I thought he was a figment of our imagination, or, that lamp is starting to look really weird over there. Anyway, going through the lineup, I still think it's a pretty decent lineup. Jose Altuve is going to be playing left field, which is crazy. I can't believe it. But you got Altuve, Isaac Paredes, Yordan Alvarez, who always has the potential to hit 50 homers, in my opinion, one of the best hitters in baseball. Christian Walker, I think that's a great top 4. Yainer Diaz behind the plate, who I think is one of the most underrated catchers in baseball from an offensive perspective this year. Jeremy Pena, who, he's a pretty decent player. He's a little bit older than a lot of people think, in my opinion. He's going to be 28 this year. Had a 2.8 WAR last year. Very, very middle of the road on offense, but a great defender. But here's where it gets interesting. If it weren't for Jose Altuve playing left field, they would have an insanely weak outfield. Chas McCormick is listed as their everyday right fielder right now. Jake Myers in center field. Mauricio Dubon at second base. This is a pretty lacking bottom third of the lineup from the Houston Astros, at least that we've seen in recent memory. I do still think I really like their top 6. Like Altuve is still doing it. 3.9 WAR last year. He's going to be 35. How is playing left field going to affect his health? That will be seen at some point. Isaac Paredes, I think, will be very, very good, at least in the Houston ballpark. Yordan Alvarez, if he plays like 150 games, he's going to hit 40 homers. Sorry, had a hair on my tongue, which I don't know how that happened. Christian Walker, been one of the most underrated players in baseball the last several years. Yainer Diaz, a catcher, I think has also just been super underrated. So I think that's a very, very good lineup. You got Victor Caratini, John Singleton, Ben Gamel, and Luis Guillorme on the bench. I think that's a very serviceable bench. Victor Caratini had a pretty solid year last year. 113 OPS plus or WRC plus, 744 OPS. John Singleton, decent lefty bat. Got 405 plate appearances, 105 WRC plus. Ben Gamel, I think he's decent as well. 115 OPS or WRC plus in 99 plate appearances. I think it's still a pretty solid lineup. You're definitely missing Kyle Tucker. You're definitely missing Alex Bregman. It's a little bit more shallow. Like their outfield is very, very weak. But it still has the potential to be a good lineup if everyone stays healthy. In the rotation, you got Framber Valdez, who seems to be doing it every year. Hunter Brown had an amazing second half last year and had a very, very good year overall. Ronel Blanco came out of nowhere, had a 2.8 ERA last year. Spencer Arrighetti had another really, really strong second half last year, 145 innings pitched. You brought in Hayden Wesneski, who's right now listed as the number 5. I still think the Houston bullpen is probably one of the best, and I think it's the best in the AL West at the very least. You still have Josh Hader, who's a fantastic closer. Brian Abreu, who's absolutely filthy. Taylor Scott was a fantastic last year. Brian King was also extremely good last year. Steven Okert, Logan Van Way, and Jalen Beeks are a little bit questionable. You don't really know what you're going to get with them. The same thing with Luis Contreras. But the 4 of Hader, Abreu, Scott, and King, very, very, very good back end of the bullpen. You did lose Ryan Presley, but he was getting a little bit up there in age. Did not have a fantastic season last year. And there still might be help on the way. I mean, if McCullers is back soon, I know Caleb Ort is probably going to be on the IL with a strained oblique. Forrest Whitley with a knee contusion, it looks like. Spring training injuries. This is not like season ending, it doesn't seem like. I know strained obliques can be very, very naggy, so maybe it's a little bit longer than you think. But those two could help soon. Lance McCullers, if he's anything like he was, 4 years ago or so, he could be very good. I don't know what Luis Garcia's timetable is. It's almost been 2 years, which is kind of nuts. JP France had shoulder surgery about 9 months ago. So they got a lot of guys on the IL as far as pitchers. Having said that, the rotation and bullpen as a whole, I really, really like. And I really, really like the top 6 of the lineup. And let me go back to why I think this trade really, really worked for Houston. If they did not trade Kyle Tucker, they obviously are a better team. Obviously, much better outfield. But do they have Isaac Paredes at third base? I don't think so. Well, obviously not. Do they have someone as productive? I don't think so. I don't think you bring back Alex Bregman if you keep Kyle Tucker. And I don't think those two have anything to do with each other, but that's just what I think would have happened or would not have happened. Cam Smith is for the future, and it looks like he is going to be a very, very good player. He mashed his way through the minors last year, and it looks like he's mashing in spring training. So you got a guy for right now in Paredes, who is an all-star, whose swing is going to be very, very good in your ballpark. And you brought in Hayden Wesneski, who's also going to help right now. And Cam Smith could be a really, really good MLB player, and that is for the future. So I think even though that makes you worse right now, I think it could have been a good move. I really do. I think it would have been a better move if they would have gone out and gotten another outfielder, because I definitely think I do think this is a playoff team. And I'm going to go ahead and say my over under for Houston. I'm going to say the over. I think they're an 88, 89 win team. But what I think is going to hurt them, or it's going to be so bad, if they make the playoffs, they get eliminated in the ALDS or something because of their offensive failures. Everyone's going to be like, this wouldn't have happened if you didn't trade Kyle Tucker. So that's what's going to hurt if that happens. It may not happen, but that's what I think. Houston, I do think it's the over. If I didn't say that already, I think I did. I'm going crazy. I haven't slept that much in the last week, so bear with me. But 88 wins, 89 wins for Houston. Wouldn't be surprised if they won 90. I just really, really like that starting rotation. The second halves from Brown and Arrighetti really make me excited to watch them. Fromber's done it, and you may have reinforcements on the way coming back, getting healthy. But with number one projected in the AL West is the Texas Rangers, and I also think they're winning the division. I do think they're the favorites in the AL West. I think they really did have a massive World Series hangover in 2024. It seemed like everyone in that lineup just played down. It just seemed like it. Let's see who do they lose? They lost Andrew Heaney. Excuse me, sorry. They lost Kirby Yates to the Dodgers. David Robertson is still not signed anywhere. They lost Jose Leclerc to the Athletics, Max Scherzer to Toronto, Andrew Chafin to Detroit, Jose Urania, Travis Jankowski, not Janskowski, sorry. Carson Kelly, Jose Leclerc. You brought back Nate Eovaldi. Who did they bring in, though? They brought in Jock Peterson, who just mashes righties at this point. You traded for Jake Burger, who he's listed as 8th in this lineup. 114 WRC plus last year. I believe he hit 30 homers. He might be one of the biggest power bats that fly under the radar at this point. He hit 29 homers last year. He's definitely more of a DH. 0.5 WAR. I know he's not much on the defensive side, but you're talking about a dude here after 1,200 plate appearances has a 111 OPS plus. It's a really, really solid OPS plus. Who else did they bring in? Kyle Higashioka, who had a pretty solid year last year. Decent backup catcher. Maybe not amazing, but 87 WRC plus is still a little meh, but 1.5 WAR. Josh Smith, like very, very good utility player. 108 WRC plus last year. Well, they didn't bring him in, but he was there last year. Kevin Pillar you brought in to be on the bench. I'm a big Kevin Pillar fan. I love that he got that one MVP vote that one year. Who else did they bring in? They brought in Chris Martin. They traded for Robert Garcia. They basically reworked their whole bullpen. They brought in Luke Jackson, Jacob Webb, Hobie Milner, Sean Armstrong. I think it's a nicely revamped bullpen for what they lost. I think they're really, really missing out on the we're going to be all over the place for the Texas Rangers. Let's just start with the bullpen since we're right here. They brought in Robert Garcia. I think he could be the top end guy in that bullpen. Chris Martin has been really, really steady for the last several years. Luke Jackson, Jacob Webb, Braves legends, are okay. They're fine. They're going to give you innings. They're not going to be horrible. Same thing with Hobie Milner and Sean Armstrong. Hobie Milner's a pretty decent lefty. And Dane Dunning, one's a top prospect. He's 30 now. Jeez, that's crazy. They do have John Gray on the IL or projected IL. Same thing with Cody Bradford. Josh Spores is also going to be on the IL. I think this is a decent, like I said, they're lacking on the back end dudes, but I think they have a decent amount of solid bullpen arms. Not amazing, but solid. Excuse me. Been talking a lot. My voice is starting to get a little hoarse, but we're almost there. I can't believe it's almost been an hour. Thank you for staying with me. The rotation listed right here. Nathan Eovaldi, Tyler Mahle. I always get confused on how to pronounce his name. Let me know how to pronounce his name, please. So Eovaldi, Mahle, Jack Leiter, Kumar Rocker, and Jacob deGrom going to be back at some point this year. That is a very, very interesting rotation, in my opinion. I think Nathan Eovaldi is a really, really good pitcher. Especially in the playoffs. I mean, it's fun watching him battle. Tyler Mahle did not have any time in the majors last year, basically. He was hurt pretty much the whole year. 12 innings, 4.97 ERA. Pretty rough go of things. Hopefully he can be healthy this year. Jack Leiter was a bit of a disappointing rookie last year. When he got drafted, I mean, the hype was off the charts, especially for me. I was really, really hyped after seeing what he did in Vanderbilt, but he was a bit underwhelming. And I think a bit is a very, very understated that statement. He was very underwhelming with an ERA almost 9. That is crazy. I'm actually just going to see what he's doing this spring. I know he's walking a ton of guys, but I think the strikeouts are pretty high in spring. That's kind of what I look at. If I look at anything, if I put stock in anything in spring for pitchers, it's probably going to be strikeouts, walks, stuff like that. Decent ERA, but he's still walking a lot of guys, 5.5 walks per 9. And Kumar Rocker, though, different story. He's slated as their number 5. Him and Leiter were both rotation teammates in college at Vanderbilt, which I think is such a cool story. I think in his most recent start, Kumar Rocker was electric. I think he struck out like 8 or so. He's walking a lot of guys in spring, six walks. So maybe I was focused on that one start where it looked like he was going nuts. And then Jacob deGrom, he started 2 games this spring, 6 strikeouts, 2 walks. This rotation makes me nervous. Not gonna lie. I do like Eovaldi, but Mahle's a question mark. What's he going to give you? Jack Leiter, is he going to take a step forward? Is Kumar Rocker going to become a guy? And is Jacob deGrom going to make more than 15 starts before his body shuts down? He's almost 37. Sorry about that. I want to believe in Jacob deGrom. I want to believe he's going to make 15 to 20 starts at the bare minimum. I think this rotation would look a whole lot different if he does. I don't think you can really expect any more than 20 starts at this point. Tyler Mahle has been decent before. He had a pretty solid 2023, if I remember correctly. Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker, they have very, very high upside, but are you going to get that upside, or are they just going to walk a ton of guys? Walks are never good. And I know the bullpen got an overhaul, but I think the lacking of the top guys, top end bullpen arms, is a little bit frightening. Even though Robert Garcia could be one of those, he absolutely could be one of those elite bullpen arms, and trade away Nate Lowe for him, which, I mean, could be a decent trade. You brought in Jake Burger to replace him, and I think you got pros and cons to either Jake Burger or Nate Lowe. But look at Robert Garcia's Baseball Savant page. There's a lot of red there. And the crazy thing is, his B WAR is negative, while his F WAR is extremely high. I think his F WAR, if we're going to go on a little bit of a tangent here, I'm going to look at Robert Garcia's page from last year, just because, like, I think I'm going to trust F WAR or F WAR for pitchers. I think B WAR for hitters is okay. But look at this 2024, 1.5 F WAR. His ERA was 4.22, but his FIP, very, very big discrepancy, 2.38 FIP. So I do think that he could be one of the top guys, but I'm just a little bit nervous about it right this second because he just hasn't done it before. But I think he can do it. And I think he will do it? I kind of do. See, negative 0.2 WAR from Robert Garcia last year. That's crazy. But anyway, let's look at the lineup. We kind of Tarantino'd the Texas Rangers. We got Marcus Semien leading off, who seems to be like every other year he's an MVP candidate. I think 2025 is the even year where he will be MVP candidate if we're going by patterns. Corey Seager, who's an MVP candidate every year, he plays more than 140 games. Wyatt Langford, who had a ridiculous second half last year. Jock Peterson, who mashes the hell out of righties. Adolis Garcia, who just mashes everything when he's going well. He did not have a great season last year, not even a really good season last year. Josh Young should be coming back from injury. Before he got hurt in 2023, he was a very, very, very good player, on pace for placing high in Rookie of the Year. Evan Carter had an amazing postseason run in 2023. One of the most hyped up prospects going into 2024, one of the favorites to win Rookie of the Year, but had a very, very disappointing season. I know he dealt with some injuries, but still an 80 WRC plus with a 633 OPS. Very, very disappointing. Jake Berger really, really mashes. That's about all he does, though. Jonah Heim had a disappointing year last year after being a very, very good hitter last year, or in 2023. In 2023, I mean. What can we expect from the lineup? I think they're all going to improve pretty much. I think the guys who need to bounce back will. I think Marcus Semien is probably going to have a better year last year, even though he only had a 99 WRC plus and 699 OPS. He still put up 4.2 F4. So he's always going to be very, very good with the glove. I know he's getting a little bit older, and it's kind of crazy to think about that he could be talked about as being a Hall of Famer at some point. He's 34 years old. This is a separate topic for sure, but he has like 40 some career WAR, 45.9 career WAR, which is, kind of nuts. I was not going to expect that in the least, but Wyatt Langford, I think he's going to take another step forward next year. He's going to be a stud. He's only 23 years old. Jock Peterson, he just mashes every single year against righties. It's crazy. I think Adolis Garcia is better than he was last year. He had a fantastic 2023. I think, is that the year he won the home run derby? Or did he win the home run derby? I don't think he won the home run derby, did he? I just look like a fool. But he had 39 homers in 2023 compared to 25 last year, with an OPS plus of only 94 last year compared to 127 the year before. I think if he can find somewhere in the middle, that's a big improvement. Josh Young, I am very optimistic about him. 102 WRC plus last year, 719 OPS. He missed some time with injury. Evan Carter, I think, is going to figure some things out. He may never get to that hype up point where he was in the 2023 playoffs, but I do think he's much better than he was last year. He's a much better player than he was last year. I think maybe if you can get a 750 OPS from him with good defense, that's a big win. A Jake Berger, if he gives you 30 bombs, you got to be happy about it. Gives you mediocre to a little bit below mediocre defense, which is not incredibly important at first. Jonah Heim, just put up a WRC plus of like 90 and then be the best fielder you can. And then that's a great 9 hitter. That's a great guy to have on your team. And I think he was an all-star in 2023, right? He did not have a great year fielding in 2024. He was great in 2023. So maybe there was something there. Maybe he was dealing with injuries or something like that. But to sum up, let's just go ahead and sum up the Rangers. Very excited for their lineup. I'm excited but scared of their rotation. By the way, I do think their bench is pretty solid. Higashioka, Josh Smith, Pilar, Leody Taveras. I know Leody Taveras had a very, very solid 23, I think. So I'm excited. I think that's a good bench. But I am excited about the lineup. I am excited about the rotation, but I'm also nervous. I'm excited but scared, to the point where, like, the same excitement as someone who is extremely afraid of height going up in a plane to watch their friend skydive or skydive themselves. That's the kind of anxiety and excitement that I'm feeling for the rotation. And I don't feel any excitement about the bullpen. But I also am not really, really scared or nervous or about their bullpen. So it's kind of a toss up. I still think they're my favorite to win the West. I just think the lineup's very, very good. And it's just, I think the rotation will be on the side of good. When you think about expectations, the side of good instead of the side of not very good, in my opinion. But do I think they're going to win 89.5 games? Ah, man, this is tough. You know what? I'm going to hit the over. I think their bullpen is just good enough. And I think their rotation has a good enough potential. If Jacob deGrom throws 100 innings, and I think their lineup's just going to mash. I really do. So I'm going to take the over on Texas. I think they're going to win the AL West this year. I'm going to say 91 wins. So all of these teams were, except for Sacramento, I think barely, like Sacramento was easy for hammering on the over, but all these other teams are very, very close to what these win totals are. I do think it's going to be a fun race between Texas, Houston, and Seattle. I think even Sacramento could get in that mix, which is kind of nuts. But anyway, if you've listened this far, thank you so much for listening. Make sure to like the video. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like. If you're on Spotify, which we are on Spotify, by the way. So if you're watching on YouTube Music or something else, some other platform, and you like Spotify, we're over there. Just letting you know, I'm going to put the link in the description this time. I'm going to try to become more of a professional podcaster. Not that I ever will be a professional podcaster, but I do like doing this, and I think I could be good at it if I keep going. This is only episode number 4, so who knows what things are going to be like in 100 episodes. So also, let me know what I can improve on. I would love to make it a more enjoyable experience for you all, and enjoy opening day if I don't see you until the 27th. I'll see y'all later. Take care.